Having an opinion is easy. Having an idea is admirable. But taking action, though, that's making a difference. Welcome, Xenia, back to X-Town, the podcast. I'm the host, Josh Long, and I'm also founder of Xenia's Word on the Street. You get local news, events, and views at xeniaword.com. All right, as I mentioned in the past, I typically record these podcasts as a way to get information out to the public, but sometimes more importantly, just as something therapeutic when I have something to say, an opinion to give, and I don't want to feed the internet trolls by just posting shit on Facebook. With that said, local headlines. As many have probably known by now, because of some coverage in Dayton Daily News and the Xenia Daily Gazette, the Xenia City Council selected to appoint Thomas Screvens to fill a vacancy on the City Council. I've already recorded a past podcast about how that vacancy got here. And so now, not to berate those details, but just to explain that because of the election process and Sarah Mays becoming our next wonderful mayor, it left a 2-year city council seat or term open, and council had to fill that because that is their duty according to city charter. And today I want to talk about first that process, then how and who they picked, what my opinion of that is. I'm going to share a little bit about a friend of mine, and then I'm going to talk about the idea of taking action. So, first, the process for the city council seat. The vacancy came up, and according to city charter, council must appoint someone within so many days of that vacancy to fill that seat until the next general election. So here's how this process works. January 1st, the vacancy came available. 2-year left on this term. The council picks in January who they want to fill that term until December 2018, the end of this year. So the council has to appoint somebody for 1 year. The voters will get to decide in November of this year who will fill the last 12 months of that term. Now, with that said, a year after that, then this seat comes up for its regular election 4-year term. So we will be voting on this particular council seat 3 times over the next 3 years. Which what I found amusing when I was reading public comments on this on social media this morning. What I found amusing is people implying that voters don't get a say. The voters, we're going to have to pick 3 people to fill this seat 3 times over the next 3 years, and 2 out of those 3 times the voters get to decide. But for right now, because there is no election between January and November, the council, by city charter, must fill that vacancy, and they did so. Here's how they did the process. In December, they asked for candidates who were interested in the seat to submit their resume and a letter of interest. They then were interviewed. 3 candidates or 3 residents put their name up to be appointed for this council seat for 12 months. They were interviewed in January, and council recently voted to appoint Thomas Screvens to fill that seat. So the 3 people to fill that who applied: Billy Carrico, who had the opportunity and ran in November, but the voters did not elect her to 2 open seats then. She applied. Thomas Screvens, who filed petitions, from my understanding, to run in November, but because of a clerical error not signing those, and I know that embarrassment all too well, his petitions were then invalidated and he was not able to run. And then the third person who put their name in the hat was Matt Bennett. And many of you guys know who Matt is in the community. I'm going to talk more about Matt here in a minute. So it left 3 candidates. By default, some in the community, and I'm not going to say the majority or many people, I don't know, but there 1,000 people voted for her, so probably a good portion of those were probably would want the outcome. So Billy Carrico had the opportunity to did run for city council in November, had the opportunity. The voters chose 2 other candidates above her, and some of her supporters think that she should have received this vacant seating based on just the fact that she ran. But it's pretty hard to appoint someone to city council the voters just had the opportunity to do it and chose not to. So in my opinion, that come down then to Thomas Screvens and Matthew Bennett. both active members of our community, both respected in their own rights. And the council picked Thomas Screvens. All three candidates interviewed had a chance to present their ideas. So just to be honest, and I don't know Thomas very well, but I think Thomas was a good, clean choice. Someone who's volunteered for the government in the past, someone who comes to the meetings. Council's already got the budget approved for this year. The agenda's already set. Of course, they probably don't want anyone coming in here and mucking that water up. Whatever the case is, they're only there for a few months anyways. So they picked Thomas, and I thought that was a solid choice, although I would have picked another candidate, but it was a solid choice. I thought it was a solid, clean choice until I started reading the headlines about some things in Thomas's past. And I don't think if you read the Dayton Daily News article or the Xenia Daily Gazette article, one, I appreciate Thomas being interviewed and coming straight out when the allegations about his past came up. And we use words like allegations and a past and a criminal record. But at the end of the day, he was unable to pay taxes for a while. He's been making payments and paying on those properties. My understanding, he's got some violations for a dog or cat or something, getting out multiple times. And he had this ominous theft charge that was a misdemeanor given to him. What seemed to be a disagreement, according to him in the paper in their investigation, disagreement between him and a neighbor several years ago, that Thomas stole a cat crate or a cat trap or something that was holding a pet of his. He took it and cut the lock and had to make restitution for $6 to pay his neighbor back for that stolen lock. Whatever. It is what it is. And I didn't put much merit on that. The only reason that I would say, so my issue with who they picked has nothing about who they picked, but the process of how they got there. It is pretty evident at this point that city council or someone did not perform a background check, or council would have been presented this information. I don't know if it would have changed their opinion or not. There is no legal requirement that stops someone who owes city taxes from running for council. You can have a criminal record and run for city council. Now, I find it odd that people think he shouldn't represent the residents when I know firsthand that thousands of Xenia residents owe property taxes to the county. So it would stand with reason that if council was an elected representative body of the community, that in fact someone on that council may too owe back taxes by the nature of statistics and how taxes work in our community. What set me back, though, was not council's line of thinking when they picked Thomas. I know many of them, respect them dearly, call many my friends. The breakdown that the background check wasn't done, and this would come out later after the selection was picked, seems embarrassing for them, and some of them probably feel that way. What set me back, though, was the third candidate. See, this is, if you follow social media on Facebook, people are making it sound like this is council getting back at Billy Carrico because she's outspoken, or some think it's a racial thing that Thomas was picked solely because of his race. Now, I will tell you that there are some people out there who don't think that someone should be elected to council solely on their race, and I can understand the solely part. But we do have to make a conscious effort to ensure that minorities are elected to our governing bodies, because the majority always votes. And I don't believe Thomas was picked solely because of his race. I don't know if it was a reason for their selection. If there was no other African Americans on that council, it would stand within reason, and even if I was in their shoes, that be part of the consideration to ensure that our large population of African American residents and voters in our community are well representative on this council, and it's not just 7 white people. That aside, I digress. I learned this week that a friend of mine, Matt Bennett, also applied for that position, and he was passed over. I could imagine they didn't want to appoint Billy Carrico to this position because the voters had a chance that did not. So in my mind, it came down between Thomas Screvens and Matt Bennett, and I think before the headlines this week, I would think that both of them are very respectful members of this community, and still are very respectful members of this community. But when you're putting resume to resume, I start to question why Matt was not picked, especially if anyone on council knew about the back taxes that Mr. Screvens owes. I don't believe back taxes, again, should disqualify you. But I would bet it'd be hard for Matt Bennett to swallow that his resume was not good enough to get over a candidate who owes $1,000 in back taxes. Personally, that's got to be hard to swallow. And as the community is all wrapped up in council and Carrico and council and Screvens, here's this third individual. Matthew Bennett, a business owner, an insurance agent many of us, thousands of us know in this community, a Rotary member, Chamber of Commerce member, active in the school system and the board. He's a father who, like me, has a little mini-me for a daughter. He's a husband, and like me, has a wife who passionately cares about him. He's invested financially and emotionally in our community. I would imagine it's hard for him to be told that he wasn't picked on resume alone. Even harder to read the news that he was not picked over this candidate who has some baggage attached. Regardless, I know Matt, and think if he's as passionate about government, it's not going to stop him from seeking city council one day. I hope not. And I think he'll be a stellar member. Now, with that said, I just remind those who are on city council who may be listening to this that as we entrench a little bit because maybe we feel a little embarrassed the background check wasn't done, or we feel that we shouldn't have to defend our decision, especially to some in the public who are just being nasty about it. Just keep in mind that this wasn't just Carrico and council or Screvens tax issues. Mr. Bennett was there. He was an option. Wasn't picked. Okay. But it's worth an apology to him if he just truly wasn't picked because you think that someone with a back tax record, for lack of a better word, was a better candidate. I don't believe that was the case. I believe Thomas Screvens is going to be great on council. Going to be well thoughtful. He's very passionate. I've seen him speak on behalf of this community. He's going to, and I think he's going to enjoy these few months on council. And if he runs in November, I don't know, but I'm sure he will not be alone if he seeks the last 12 months of that term here in November. I just invite my council colleagues who I served with and some that are on there now to caution our words when we speak and defend our decision, because we don't want to say those things out loud to the detriment of someone like Matt Bennett, who was very compassionate, involved, and engaged in this community. My word of advice to Matt would be, Matt, use this bullshit to fertilize that seed, to grow your ideas. And if you decide to run for council this year, next year, the year after, use this bullshit now to fertilize that idea. And my advice to anyone getting into politics is the decision to run is a big one. But to stop, and I wish I'd done this before I ran, to stop and think of what the end state's going to be. When you're done with city council, how do you want to feel? What does that look like? What do you want to get accomplished? Take some time and think about that end state to help guide you through that 4, 8, 12-year term, whatever that may be. Because the reality is there's lots of people in this community who have opinions, and you're going to hear it. You have to be willing to accept criticism, let it come in one ear and out the other, take in the influence from the people who matter. You have to be able to build boundaries in your business, your professional, your personal life. These are part-time gigs, but for a lot of us who are passionate, like Mayor Bayless said in her recent interview in the paper when she was stepping down, this may be a part-time position, but nothing's part-time when you're a full-time person. So I'll leave you with this, X-Town. Having an opinion is easy. Having an idea is admirable. But taking action, though, that makes a difference. I want to thank everyone in this community who plants those seeds, who takes that action, who tends to those crops and grows an idea into reality. You're the ones making a difference. Even when you're criticized, even when you think you run out of steam, I've been there. but you're making the difference. All right, X-Town, I'm out of here. Just a reminder, to go to xeniaword.com for local news, events, and views. And again, if you're passionate about this community, if you want to write and share your opinion and talk about events and politics, I offer you a platform at xeniaword.com, a chance to write an opinion editor, to write about events, to record a podcast maybe if you're interested. I offer that to you to engage the community, to get us talking about it, get us interested and engaged and enthusiastic, and become a doer, not a complainer. All right, Xenia, I'm out of here. Till next time. Have a great week, X-Town.
Hey, what is this?
Seeing as word on the street.